So I have to say, I think a lot had to do with incompetence, and you just saw it, like I said, on every level. And it's really unfortunate because during the Public Order Emergency Act, it was like, well, there was this much, and it was a lot of finger pointing. This organization said this one should have done it. And then it was like, well, we needed more resources. It's like, look, people, resources are not the issue. It's the competency. To start with, and I've said this many times, the Ontario Police force was the most professional and reputable, the OPP, but other levels were not. The one thing where it's questionable about whether or not it was nefarious, but I think it was just political gains or trying to, and this was well discussed in the Public Order Emergency Inquiry, and Brendan Miller did a great job with this, was the earlier emails that came out, even before any of the protesters got to Ottawa, with Minister Blair's office already having a narrative that these are racist, that they're not here to abide by the law, and we will not stand for this. And those were words that he used in his speech, but were in the cabin speech on the first weekend, but they were prepared prior to any protesters even getting to Ottawa. But this is where I wonder whether that was, well, I guess, nefarious to the public good and public interest, because it was a self-interest on a political level, I think, more so than.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even that line of like, these are racists and misogynists and all this, I mean, it's incredible to me, because that line broke down like immediately, right? Because you just go on social media and there's Sikh people with tents handing out food to protesters. There's Black people there, white people, Asians, like it was a mix of everyone, right? So to say that these are white supremacists or racists or whatever, I mean, to me, it's like, I don't know, it's just foolish. It's like, you got to come up with something better, right? Like they're just kind of, but this
But
is
it
the thing.
worked.
Well,
It worked.
it did, and it didn't. I mean, I think that there's an objective truth, no matter how much you want to believe in subjective reality. There's an objective truth that is clear to everyone, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And I think that was, with the convoy, there was an objective truth there that was very obvious and very clear to everyone, right? And I think that's why, to this day, right? Like, I mean, I would argue that the convoy destroyed Trudeau's political career, because
His reaction to it, for
well,
sure.
his reaction to it, exactly. Like I said, he had a perfect opportunity
Yeah.
to actually unite Canada and unite the world. He could have shown the world, like, this is what we do. This is what a leader is. Look, the country is spoken. Maybe it's not everybody, but it's a large enough percentage of people who are obviously very passionate about this issue. I'm going to step forward and talk to them, negotiate them, talk them off the ledge, essentially, right? Like he could have even framed it that way, right? But he didn't. And that was the thing, is it was you're right. It was the reaction to the convoy that was the undoing of his political career. It's funny, because I hear a lot of people on the left talking about, oh, the convoy failed. No, the convoy was wildly successful. Look at Trudeau then versus now. I mean,
Yeah.
the man can't go anywhere. He literally can't walk outside, right? I mean, this entire country is just, it's just brimming with fury at this point. And I mean, I don't know if he'll actually be able to, once he's done, which I think we're got to be getting close to it now. I don't think we're going to get to 2025 without an election. But once he's done, I don't even know if he can live in this country, right? Because no matter where he goes, he's viewed as a tyrant, right? As an ideologue. And here's the thing about him, and we're going to get to this, but I'll say this right now. When you were cross-examining him, he was exactly what I've always thought he was. He's not Hitler or Stalin or any of these vicious, brutal dictators. He's an ideologue for the sake of being an ideologue, because he doesn't have an original thought in his head. And that's the problem, right? Is that he, and he's reflective of a lot of our modern day society, right? A lot of people just think things that they've been handed and fed to them without really thinking them through or really parsing it out and finding the logic in it, right? And he's the same way. Whenever you trap Trudeau, and you did a fantastic job at doing this. I mean, he literally launched into an advertisement for vaccines because you had trapped him against the wall, and he didn't know what to say. That you got him to a position where he actually had to think, and he broke down and went into a long monologue about the safety and efficacy of COVID vaccines. I mean, you successfully exposed who he really is in that moment, right? And I think that's just what he is. He's just an ideologue, but he's not somebody who is, deeply committed to any ideology. He just attached himself. He found himself in a position where he became the leader of the Liberal Party through the strength of his last name only. I don't think he ever wanted to be in politics, nor do I think he ever had designs on being prime minister. I don't think that was just, from what I understand, his brother who passed away was the one who was being groomed to actually enter politics. And I think Justin Trudeau he's just a beach bum. He just wants to hang out on the beach and go surfing and smoke a joint and hang out. That's the sense I get from this guy. And so, I mean, that's what makes him incredibly dangerous, is that he's highly susceptible to suggestion, right? And that he's not somebody who thinks things through. And that's why when you trap him, or when you see him, give a speech or in a press conference or in an interview, he just spews out buzzwords. It's just buzzword after buzzword after buzzword, because he doesn't have anything else.
Can I put to you something?
Okay.
I think that how you're describing Trudeau is who Canada is right now.
Yeah.
And I got this not for myself. It was Russell Brand made that comparison with President Biden, and he actually said he's the perfect politician, president for the United States of America, because it's broken, it's old, it's demented, it's, and I find that it's exactly the same for Canada. Canada doesn't have any clue who we are, what we stand for, and Prime Minister Trudeau is the perfect example of who Canada is right now. And everything you were saying, I totally agree with.
Yeah,
That's who we are as a country right now. Unfortunately, you see it. We talk about diversity and inclusion. The hell happened to us for the last 3 years? It was actually disgusting. We can't talk to each other anymore. Like, I am hesitant to tell people that I was representing the Freedom Convoy. Again, like I told you, lawyers that represented murderers and pedophiles never had this much hate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What happened to us?
It's because, and again, I think your familial history, has a lot of experience with this. It's what happens when ideology takes the wheel, right? I think in Canada, we were very fortunate for a long time. We didn't really have to think about who was governing us. Yes, most Canadians, and they can't name more than 2 or 3 past prime ministers, right? I mean, this is, I think, the first time where every Canadian knows who our prime minister is, right? We were really fortunate because we lived in a scenario where we didn't really have to be involved. Things just went, and Canada was never an economic powerhouse, but we were never a third world country either, right? Like we kind of piggybacked off of the success of the United States, and we were, I mean, even culturally, right? Like culturally, we just absorbed the runoff from the US, right? We're 5 years behind where they are perpetually, right? And now I think the good thing about Trudeau, and exactly what you just said, is that there is a backlash, and it has forced us to examine our national identity and figure out who we are. And we're figuring that out. It's a slow, painful process. But again, I think it was that it was the convoy that sparked that conversation, and Trudeau thereafter kind of once again repeatedly putting us in a corner and us having to figure out who we are. And I think we're slowly getting it.